Welcome back to LeapTalk English, where real conversations help your English grow naturally. I'm Mary.
And I'm Albert. And Mary, I want to start today with something that I've noticed changing in the people around me, and honestly, in myself too.
Go ahead, Albert.
There used to be a time when I associated exciting relationships with a certain kind of intensity, the kind where everything felt heightened, where you never quite knew where you stood, where the good moments were incredible, but the difficult moments were exhausting and confusing.
And that felt like passion.
It felt exactly like passion. It felt like proof that something real was happening, like the turbulence was evidence of depth.
And then, at some point, for a lot of people, something shifts and the turbulence stops feeling exciting and it just starts feeling tiring.
Deeply tiring. And you start wondering, when did calm become something I want more than anything else?
And I think this is one of the most significant emotional shifts happening right now in 2026. People in huge numbers are turning away from drama, from intensity, from relationships that keep them guessing, and actively choosing calm, stability, ease.
And not because they have given up on depth or connection, but because they have finally understood something important. Calm is not the absence of feeling, it is the presence of safety.
And today, that is exactly what we want to talk about. Why are so many people done with drama? What made them finally reach that point? And what does choosing calm actually look and feel like in real life?
As always, we are doing this in clear, natural B2 level English. Just relax, follow the conversation, and let your English grow naturally as you listen.
And stay with us until the end for our word tour, where we slow down and explain the most useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
And before we begin, we would love to hear from you. Have you ever confused intensity with depth in a relationship? Has your idea of what you want changed over time? Leave us a comment. We really want to know.
All right, let's get into it.
So, Mary, let's start with something honest, because I think before we can talk about choosing calm, we need to understand why drama was ever appealing in the first place.
Right, because it was appealing, and pretending it was not does not help anyone understand what is actually going on.
For a lot of people, especially when they were younger, the emotional intensity of a difficult or unpredictable relationship felt like proof that something mattered, like the stakes were high, like the feeling was real.
Because calm at that point might have felt like nothing happening, like the relationship was not passionate enough, not exciting enough, not alive enough.
And there's actually a psychological reason for this. The nervous system responds to uncertainty and unpredictability with a kind of heightened arousal. Your attention sharpens, your emotions become more intense, and that heightened state can be misread by the brain as excitement, as chemistry, as love.
When sometimes it is just anxiety.
Very specifically anxiety, and the relief that comes when the anxious period ends, when the argument is resolved, when the person comes back, when the tension breaks, that relief produces a rush of positive feeling, and the brain associates that rush with the relationship itself.
So the relationship that causes the most stress can end up feeling the most emotionally significant, the most memorable, the most passionate.
When really what you were experiencing was a cycle. Tension builds, something happens, tension releases, positive feeling follows, and then the cycle begins again.
And people can spend years in that cycle without realizing that what they're calling passion is actually an anxiety loop.
And this is not a criticism of people who have been in those relationships. It's a description of something that's genuinely easy to misread, especially if you grew up in an environment where emotional unpredictability was normal, where love came with instability, where you had to work for the good moments.
Because when those patterns are familiar, when they feel like home, you seek them out, not consciously, but the nervous system gravitates toward what it knows.
And calm in that context can feel wrong, suspicious, like something is missing, like the person doesn't care enough, like the relationship isn't real enough.
Because you've been trained by experience to equate intensity with love.
And unlearning that equation takes real time and often real pain.
And I think for many people, the turning point comes not from a sudden insight, but from exhaustion, from finally being so tired of the cycle that the relief of calm starts to outweigh the familiar pull of the chaos.
You reach a point where you simply don't have the energy for it anymore, where the idea of a relationship that requires you to constantly manage uncertainty feels genuinely unbearable.
And in that moment, calm stops feeling like settling and starts feeling like the most attractive thing in the world.
And I think that shift, when it happens, is one of the most important forms of emotional growth a person can go through.
Because it's not just about the kind of relationship you want, it's about what you now understand about yourself, about what you actually need versus what you were conditioned to chase.
And there's something beautiful about that distinction, knowing the difference between what you need and what you're used to.
So, what does choosing calm actually look like in practice? Because I want to be clear that calm does not mean dull. It does not mean emotionless. It does not mean settling for a connection that lacks depth or chemistry.
Right, and I think this is one of the most important things to say, because a lot of people, when they first start wanting calm, worry that they're giving something up, that they're choosing safety over passion.
But that framing is wrong because calm and depth are not opposites.
No, in fact, real depth requires calm. Real intimacy requires safety. You can't be truly known by someone who keeps you destabilized. You can't be fully yourself in a relationship that's constantly in crisis.
The calm relationship, the one where you know where you stand, where conflict is handled with care, where you don't spend your evenings wondering if things are okay, that relationship has more room for genuine depth than any amount of dramatic intensity.
Because when you're not spending your energy managing uncertainty, you have energy for actual connection, for real conversations, for genuine curiosity about each other, for the small, quiet moments that turn out to be the most meaningful ones.
And those small, quiet moments, the ones that drama crowds out, are where actual intimacy lives.
And I think choosing calm also means developing a new skill, a skill that sounds simple but takes real practice.
Tolerating goodness.
Yes, because for people who have been in intense or difficult relationships for a long time, a relationship that's going well can feel unfamiliar enough to be uncomfortable.
When nothing is wrong, something must be wrong. When they treat you well consistently, it can't be real. When the relationship is easy, it must not be serious enough.
And learning to sit with that discomfort, to recognize it as the nervous system adjusting to something new, rather than evidence that something is actually wrong, that's one of the most important skills in building a calmer relational life.
Because the calm relationship doesn't announce itself dramatically. It doesn't arrive with a sweeping soundtrack and a feeling of electricity. It arrives quietly, reliably, consistently.
And learning to recognize that quietness as richness rather than as absence takes time and intentional practice.
And the third thing, and I think this one matters for how we show up not just in romantic relationships, but in all of our relationships, is learning to value consistency over intensity.
Because intensity is easy to produce in short bursts. Grand gestures, dramatic reconciliations, passionate declarations. These are intense, but they aren't consistent.
And consistency, showing up the same way across many ordinary moments, is actually much harder and much more meaningful.
The person who remembers what you said last week, who follows through on small things they promised, who is the same person on a difficult Tuesday as they are on a beautiful Saturday.
That consistency, reliable, unspectacular, unglamorous, is the foundation of genuine trust, and trust is the foundation of genuine intimacy.
And once you've experienced that kind of consistency, once you've felt the safety of a relationship where you genuinely know what to expect, the appeal of intensity and drama starts to feel genuinely strange.
Like, why would you want to live in a house that might collapse at any moment when you could live in a house that simply holds?
Exactly. And I think the reason so many people are making this shift right now in 2026 is that a lot of people have finally had the experiences that taught them the difference.
They've been in the dramatic relationship, they know how it ends, and they're ready for something that lasts.
Not because the dramatic relationship was never real, but because they are now clear, perhaps for the first time, about what they actually want a relationship to feel like from the inside. Not from the outside, not on paper, but in their body on an ordinary Wednesday morning.
And the answer for more and more people is calm, safe, easy.
Not perfect, not without difficulty, but fundamentally okay.
And fundamentally okay turns out to be one of the most underrated things a relationship can be.
It really is. Okay, let's go into our word tour.
Let's do it. First word, turbulence. Turbulence means instability, unpredictability, and difficulty. In relationships, it describes the emotional ups and downs of an intense or unstable connection.
For example, she had spent years mistaking relationship turbulence for passion before she realized they were not the same thing at all. Or, the turbulence of the relationship left her exhausted even during the good periods. Repeat after us. Turbulence.
Turbulence.
Next, arousal. In psychology, arousal means a state of heightened alertness, attention, and emotional intensity. It does not always mean romantic attraction, but a general activation of the nervous system.
For example, the unpredictability of the relationship kept her in a constant state of emotional arousal that she mistook for chemistry. Or, anxiety and excitement produce very similar states of arousal in the body, which is why they're so easy to confuse. Repeat. Arousal.
Arousal. Next, conditioned. When you are conditioned to something, it means you have been repeatedly exposed to it in a way that shapes your automatic responses. You react in certain ways without consciously choosing to.
For example, he had been conditioned by his early experiences to equate emotional intensity with love, making calm relationships feel wrong even when they were right. Or, many of our relationship patterns are conditioned rather than chosen. They come from what felt normal growing up. Repeat. Conditioned.
Conditioned. Next, destabilized. When you are destabilized, you've been made to feel uncertain, unsteady, or off balance. Your sense of security has been disrupted.
For example, a relationship that constantly destabilizes you makes it impossible to be fully yourself or to build genuine intimacy. Or, she realized that feeling destabilized in a relationship was not a sign of passion, but a sign that she did not feel safe. Repeat. Destabilized.
Destabilized.
Next, reconciliation. Reconciliation means coming back together after a conflict or separation, restoring a relationship after a period of distance or disagreement.
For example, the dramatic cycle of argument and reconciliation had become so familiar that she could not imagine a relationship without it. Or, genuine reconciliation requires honesty and accountability, not just a return to good feelings. Repeat, reconciliation.
Reconciliation. Next, consistency. Consistency means doing the same thing reliably over time, behaving the same way across many different situations and moments, rather than just in peak or dramatic ones.
For example, she realized what she valued most was not grand gestures, but the quiet consistency of someone who showed up the same way every single day. Or, in relationships, consistency builds the kind of trust that intensity simply cannot. Repeat, consistency.
Consistency. And finally, unspectacular. Something that is unspectacular is ordinary and undramatic. It does not stand out or impress at first glance, but carries real, quiet value.
For example, the most meaningful moments in their relationship were completely unspectacular, just two people comfortable and honest with each other on an ordinary evening. Or, she had finally learned to find beauty in the unspectacular moments that drama had always crowded out. Repeat. Unspectacular.
Unspectacular. And those were today's word tour words and phrases.
Together, they capture everything we explored today. Why drama was once appealing, what it actually costs us, and the quiet but powerful shift toward choosing relationships that feel safe, consistent, and genuinely calm.
And wherever you are today, whether you are in the middle of learning this lesson or have already found your calm, be patient with yourself. This shift does not happen overnight, but it is always worth working toward.
Always. This is Mary.
And this is Albert. Thank you so much for listening to LeapTalk English. We will see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.